Yesterday we saw Bitcoin pumping back above the $84,000 and we're breaking huge important resistance. And I also think we are very close to a massive alt season. So in this video I'm going to tell you exactly why I think Bitcoin can see a huge rise in the next week, and of course that we are also going to see a huge alt season unfolding in the coming weeks. I will have a look at different formations for you and also different charts, so you want to watch this video all the way to the end to don't miss anything. There's a lot going on in the markets and I will discuss everything with you so you are prepared for what's coming next week. Please don't forget to slap that like button because it will help this channel a lot, and in the links in the description you can find my free Telegram group and also the link to my Twitter channel where I post a lot of daily updates. And with that being said, now let's dive right into the charts. So zooming into the 50-minute time frame, we can see that Bitcoin opened the CME gap yesterday around the $83,791, and that was around this level. So I think for the rest of the weekend we will see that Bitcoin is going to trade around this level around the $83,791. So of course if there is happening something during the weekend, we can see a lot of volatility just like the last weekends. But if the CME gap just gets closed after the weekly close, that would be great because then we can trade freely throughout the week. So I think that Bitcoin is going to trade around the CME gap and eventually we will see a close. So after the week I want to see more bullish continuation for to the top side, and let's then have a look at the 4-hour time frame for Bitcoin. We can see that yesterday I talked about this huge W pattern on the 4-hour time frame. We can see this W pattern was unfolding. We created equal lows and we also created a higher high from this previous high and also a higher low from here. So yesterday in my video I said that we wanted to see a new higher high unfold because we created a high and now we also created a higher high. So this is looking very beautiful, but also we can see that this trend line resistance and also the neckline of the W was finally broken to the top side, which is very bullish. So Bitcoin created a new higher high, and now I'm going to wait for a retest of this previous resistance to test it as support, and then from there this bullish retest you can enter the market in a long, and from there Bitcoin also creates a new higher low potentially. So this is looking very beautiful, and on the 4-hour time frame we already see a little bit of a trend shift from this bearish trend into a bullish uptrend. So this is exactly what we want to see for Bitcoin, and this could be the start of a huge reversal back to the previous all-time high. And if we have a look at the Bitcoin ETF flow of yesterday, we can see a lot of negative days throughout the last 2 weeks. But yesterday we only saw a 1 million in the total outflow, and only the Bitwise Bitcoin ETF and the ARK Bitcoin ETF were trading yesterday. So the other ETFs didn't buy or sell anything, and totally we are at $35.5 billion of total cumulative inflow. So this is still very insane. And if we have a look at the chart of this graph, we will see a huge spike to the top side. We created an all-time high, then we are seeing a little bit of downside now. So let's see if we can see a continuation of this bullish uptrend for the Bitcoin ETFs. And looking at the Ethereum ETF flows of yesterday, we saw another very bearish day because Grayscale is still selling their portion of Ethereum. We can see in 29.2 million of total outflows out of the Ethereum ETF. So this is still very bearish. And of course, Ethereum is not looking good on the charts as well. So let's see if next week can be a little bit different for the Bitcoin and the Ethereum ETFs. And zooming out to the daily time frame, I've been talking about this huge formation for Bitcoin. On the top side we can see this huge trendline resistance with multiple touch points here as resistance, and on the lower side we can see multiple touch points here as support. And every time we touch this level we saw a bounce to either the downside or the top side. Earlier this week we saw a huge bounce from the downside, and now it looks like that Bitcoin is trying to break out of this huge resistance trend line. And of course the breakout is not very clear, but of course we can see a little bit of a confirmation of the break, but I want to see more separation after this break has been confirmed. So if we're going to break this resistance, we could potentially wait for a bullish retest to test this previous resistance as support, and then I'm going to enter the market in the long and aim for higher targets, and that's exactly what I'm going to wait for in the coming days. So I think this formation is very bullish, and eventually this is a typical bullish reversal pattern because this falling wedge is eventually coming to a huge apex, and we're seeing a little bit of a breakout today. So yeah, we can see maybe a little bit of a bullish continuation of this breakout, and that will be very perfectly to see. And earlier this week I was discussing this huge bullish divergence with you on the daily time frame, and it is playing out like clockwork. So I said we see the lower lows on the price chart, but we saw higher lows on the RSI chart, and eventually I think the selling pressure was cooling off, so eventually we will see more spikes to the top side for either the RSI and either the price chart. So that's exactly what we want to see, and that's exactly what happened. So we are now seeing this huge spike to the top side for Bitcoin. So this bullish divergence is playing out perfectly, and that's exactly what I warned you about. So you could have been warned about this if you watched my videos, or if you stayed up to date on my Twitter channel where I shared this information with you. And I also think we're close to a massive alt season, because in this chart we can see that the Bitcoin season is still happening, and we are also want to see this alt season happening, just like we saw in the next year, in the last year. We saw this spike to the top side, and because then altcoins were pumping like crazy. So that's exactly what we want to see again. And if we then have a look at the charts of the Bitcoin dominance, we can see that the Bitcoin dominance is topping out like crazy, and on the weekly time frame we can see this huge trend line was unfolding, and we are seeing this spike to the top side for this Bitcoin dominance. So eventually I think we will see a drop of this dominance, just like we saw here, and this was in the beginning of, in the end of 2020, so there was like 4.5 years ago. And if this Bitcoin dominance drops to the downside, we are seeing a huge alt season, just like we saw in the beginning of 2021. And that's exactly what I'm waiting for. And if this happens, then we will see a huge alt season unfold. And of course, there's also a big horizontal level as support. So I think the Bitcoin dominance might even drop to the 48%. And if this happens, the huge alt season will unfold. And then also, if we have a look at the Ethereum to Bitcoin chart pairing, we can see that this pairing is looming to the downside, and we are seeing a huge decline for this pair. So of course Ethereum is the biggest altcoin, and of course if Ethereum is going to see more strength and we finally break this downtrend, we can see more strength for Ethereum happening against Bitcoin, of course. So if Ethereum is going to rise a little bit, then we also see most likely other altcoins starting to follow. But for now, it is still Bitcoin season. And yeah, we have to wait for a reversal. So soon, if there's a reversal, we will see a big alt season unfold. And another chart I want to have a look at is the DXY, so the dollar index. We can also see that if the dollar index falls heavily, we are seeing a huge increase of assets, and that even includes Bitcoin. So if we're seeing a beautiful drop right now, that means that we could see more pumps to the top side. And the dollar is weakening, so they might, the government of the US might inject more liquidity into the market, and that of course will be very bullish, because more liquidity into the market means bigger pumps. And we can also see that this huge horizontal support was broken to the downside earlier last month. We also saw a bearish retest because we are tested previous support as resistance, and now we're seeing a beautiful bearish continuation. So this is exactly what we want to see, and this is actually looking very bullish for the market. So if this DXY drops more, then we would maybe see bigger pumps in the coming weeks and months. So during the course of the weekend, I will keep my eyes on the CME gap, and during the course of the weekend, I will keep you guys updated if there is anything happening. And of course, you can follow me on my Twitter channel, or maybe my Telegram channel for free, because I will keep you guys updated about the market there. So again, please like the video if you think it was useful. Comment on the video what kind of altcoin you want to see me chart in the next video. I hope you have a great weekend, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.